All right. Well, believe it or not, we are kicking this off with a live studio audience. I've got, first and foremost, my wife here, who's our in-house CMO. So thank you for being here, Kaylin. Yeah, and we've got a couple more notable audience members. You can see Saps here, which is a relatively new electrolyte beverage. Founder Jordan has joined us as well here in the studio audience. So, man, we're doing things a little bit differently. Another big one is this fellow to my left, and Franco. Can you please introduce yourself and let the folks know kind of what you're up to? Then we'll introduce our guest.
For sure, yeah. Super excited to be here. My name is Franco Martins. For those I haven't met, looking forward to chatting a little bit more in the happy hour afterward. I've been in Austin for about 5 years. I am a runner originally, but converted cyclist over the last 3 or 4 years and fallen in love with it. I am taking a little bit of a break from working and reached out to Sam and seeing how I could help him, and here I am. So really excited to get to engage with the community and meet founders like Scott and help out with the podcast and increase the reach, especially with the in-person and community events.
Yeah, Franco's going to add some flavor to our interviews. So without further ado, we have Scott Baldwin here from Pack Sports. And I guess Scott and I met really pretty recently, like only a few months ago, through a mutual friend, Chaz Lackalade, who was pretty excited to put us in touch for pretty obvious reasons. Scott has started a social media platform for endurance athletes, and we're going to jump into that, all sorts of details and your background story. But Scott, formally, welcome to the show. Thanks for joining us. And by the way, congratulations on kicking off your new company, your brand.
Yeah, it's been exciting, and thank you for having me. I'm excited, Franco and Sam. It's going to be good.
To put the audience on the spot, do y'all have any questions? Anything come to mind? Yeah. So what would the place on Front Pack Sports be for someone like Elizabeth, who's not hardcore endurance athlete right now?
Yeah, and sadly, I hate that we got to this question at the very end of the interview, because it's for the avid to the weekend warrior to the professional athlete. Like I said before, we've been doing this. We've got over 300 posts, and it's all about positivity. So whether, and going back to like the question of what do I want Front Pack to be, when I did my market research and I interviewed females and males that were subscribed to the newsletter, and a big part of the female response was, I don't have a place to have female connection as well. And that was really sad for a lot of people, because, like, let's be honest, in endurance sports, like, you might run up against women problems like that Sam, Franco, myself, we can't answer.
And you show up to the group ride and it's 90% men.
Yeah,
right.
Yeah, exactly. So no, to answer your question, yes, we want it to be for anyone and everybody.
Elizabeth also mentioned she's doing a decent amount of weight training, and a lot of that I think is in service to endurance or not. But do you have sort of subject matter experts and programming on the site for weight training for endurance athletes?
Yeah, that's a great question as well. So right now, I know of some coaches that are already on the platform, and they do specialize in weight training, one of which is in Austin. But going back to the actual platform, the idea is also, if you're getting super into weight training, but you're not sure how to tackle it and you don't want to injure yourself, the idea there is also that coach could put programming onto the platform. And then if you want to have one-on-one time and also pay for a plan that's, whatever cost that he decides. So, yeah, absolutely.
George brought up a great question, which is Strava and how how does Front Pack Sports play in an ecosystem where Strava is obviously really dominant? And could it be a situation where there's an integration with Front Pack Sports, or do you see yourself as competitive and entirely separate from Strava?
Friends or foes?
Frenemies.
Yeah, that was a part of when I was doing my market research originally, was looking at Strava. So Strava, 125 million users. They've raised, I think, $500 million. They're valued at, I think, 1.2 billion. So like they got their thing going. But the really interesting thing about Strava is, one, their CEO not even 2 months ago said he doesn't want to be a social network. That's like not what he wants to do. And I think the beauty of what Front Pack is doing is Strava, the journey starts and ends with someone's run, ride, or triathlon. You see what that person did, and that's it, right? So for us, it's like we want people to talk about the journey from when they first start at, hey, I just bought my first bike, to I just did this race, to I'm going to the Tour de France and like this is going to be fun and we're going to go to all these different cities. So I see us as we're focused on like different audiences, but at the same time, I am going to launch a Strava integration into Front Pack. So if you join the Front Pack Strava group, there will be an integration where it will show the leaderboard. So if you're a member of Strava and you join Front Pack, you can kind of like look at how everybody's doing for the month. Like, where do you like fit in? Like, are you training for like the least amount? Or are you training the most? And then the idea there, I would love to work with brands to say like, hey, for the month of October, we're going to be able to give you like a SRAM group set to the winner of the month, that kind of stuff. So.
Yeah, and George, I'm really glad you asked that question, because as you were explaining it, Strava is not a social first platform. It's not, and to your point, it's not trying to be.
Yeah.
So social, it's not quite an afterthought, but it's not the point.
Yeah, exactly. And they also launched like a chat functionality, but like I will say, like, I'm a Strava user, but I've never really even used that thing. So
not a lot of people do.
Yeah.
And that's such a good, I mean, we talked about it earlier in the conversation, the idea where you're consolidating all these different groups kind of into one place. Strava is where a lot of these groups live. However, it doesn't help you consolidate and figure out what's going on.
Yeah,
if it's
totally.
On any given Thursday, you have to...
That's a great point.
Manifest a ride. You can't figure it out easily.
Yeah, absolutely. We just hit up 1 month. So we launched on September 3rd, but as you said, it's called Front Pack. It's the first social network for endurance athletes by endurance athletes. The whole idea is to have this one place where cyclists, runners, triathletes, you could be yourself. When we looked at the market, and we looked at the things that we particularly didn't love about online and community, is the fact that so much of it was really like anonymous.
Yeah.
And Front Pack specifically is all about being your like true self. So whether it's about positivity, it's about connection, motivation, storytelling, and just a place where you can like lean on each other. So
awesome.
Yeah.
And I think that's a perfect sort of connector segue into like why Chaz connected us originally. Here we are doing a podcast and trying to build a community around business, basically, and networking. And you, Scott, are in our backyard building this entire platform. So I thought, what better kind of initiative for hill climbers than to support you in getting the word out, bring a studio audience in to network with, and really help you get cracking on this thing. 4 or 5 weeks in. So yeah, I guess like just to kind of warm up, what's your story with endurance and cycling? How'd you get started?
Yeah, absolutely. So my story is, so I've been in Austin for 10 years. Originally, I think one of the reasons Chaz set us up together is because I'm from outside of Philadelphia as well. He was like, oh, you're going to love this Philly
Cheers.
guy.
Yeah.
So I grew up outside of Philadelphia. Like, I've always loved bikes, like cycling. I grew up in like South New Jersey, so it's very much like farmlands and
It's beautiful.
grain.
Yeah.
But there's just roads where you can just ride on. And at the time, I was into BMX and like, you know, going in the woods and jumping dirt and like, you know, wrecking my rims. And then I got a little bit older and got into like road cycling.
What age? What?
So I was probably like 14 when I started
Okay.
getting into road cycling. My dad had this a steel Raleigh bike from like the 1970s, and it was
Oh,
like
yeah.
hanging on the wall in our garage. But you know, I would borrow that thing and just got into it. And then I got into mountain biking in college. I went to WVU, so West Virginia University. Ton of mountain biking out there. And then the older I got, I like leaned more into the endurance aspect. And then over the last 2.5 years, I've gotten like really serious about longer endurance events, which is like Ironman and, you know, just racing. Like, just fell in love with racing. We'll get into it, but I think endurance sports, whether it's cycling or running or triathlon, like it's this like microcosm of life in general. So it's just, the older I've gotten, it's just something that I've gotten more invested in.
Why do you think that is?
That it's a
You you have personally gotten into endurance at this age, you know.
Yeah, absolutely.
Midlife, yeah.
Yeah, and I think that goes back to like why I even started Front Pack. But for the longest time, we're all like athletes, right? And we grow up playing soccer, we grow up riding bikes, and you know, you get to college, and if you're lucky enough, maybe you get a scholarship, and maybe you continue that journey, and you're on sports teams. But the second when you get out of college, if you don't go pro, it's like you got to go to the working world. You've learned teamwork and you've learned motivation and confidence through sports like your entire life. And then all of a sudden it's like, whoosh, go work in the corporate world and go work for the man and like
Kill this part of your childhood.
yeah, exactly. Right. But as I've gotten older, I worked professionally for 20 years in communications and marketing, and it's just like, yeah, I worked for all these companies and it was great. I learned so much, but at the same time, like, it didn't really push me physically or mentally. And I've gotten really back into endurance because of the connections that you have with people. Like, the people that you used to meet when you were 18 and you were doing sports, like, now again, like you and I, for example, like, we've gone together. Like, I go on your Thursday rides. And
We become pretty good friends over a short period of time.
yeah, exactly. So, and then, you know, family, all that stuff, like, there's just still a part of you like that is inherently like you're still a little bit of a caveman, you know. You want to test yourself, you want to see like if you can still do things, and it's all about, for me, it's about the journey. So yeah, for me, and like the reason I built the platform was because I think if you do it, you're super passionate about it. And more oftentimes than not, your family or friends are tired of hearing about it. So I was like, oh, like, let's get all these people together.
This all sounds familiar.
Yeah.
And by the way, you know, definitely want to give you props. You recently had a pretty big result at a triathlon race. What was the story with that?
Yeah, absolutely. So it was a couple weeks ago. So it was an Olympic distance triathlon. But yeah, I finished in second in my age group and then 10th overall. So,
and you said there was a field of about 500 people. So
yeah,
that's a good
race.
result, man. Yeah.
I think for me, like, especially, it's I grew up with a swimming background, so it's like that's typically the thing people hate the most. So it's like if I could do that really, really well, and then I just like burn my legs out biking, and then the running aspect is like, let's just hold on.
Yeah.
So,
Awesome. Well, let's start talking about front pack a little bit. You are obviously pretty fit to have that result. You have a couple kids at home. You got your family, you know, youngish family, and you decided to take this big step in starting a company in entrepreneurship. How did that come about? What's the backstory? And then we're going to ask you just to prepare yourself. How do you fit it all in? How do you get it done?
Yeah, that's like a very deep breath moment. So front pack was a solution to a problem that I saw 10 months ago.
And the problem being,
The fragmentation of trying to find things online that concern cycling, triathlon, or running. There wasn't a good place. Like, you can go to like websites and read about all these different things, but like one place to find all this stuff together was like nearly impossible. So at the time, like, I'm really big into just like learning about new things and like early adopter type stuff. So I was like, oh, like obviously like newsletters have like exploded. But at the time, this was back in like December, January of this year, I was like, hey, I'm going to like start this newsletter, and I'm going to bring in humor. I'm going to bring in my own personal anecdotes. I'm going to bring my personality.
and real quick, Scott's newsletter is fantastic. It is very thorough and covers like anything you would want to know in endurance for that week. So you can subscribe at frontpacksports.com.
Yeah.
And then it's delivered, and all you need to know is in the newsletter.
It's a little too thorough, Scott. I spent a lot of time reading the articles that you publish, and it's super relevant. So.
Yeah, no, thank you. Yeah, and I try to mix in a lot of things, and I list in there races because there's just the internet's so noisy, right? It's just like it's so hard to find anything, and I'm just trying to condense. I'm trying to help people out. I know how it is. Like, you get to your desk in the morning, you like want to have 8 to 10 minutes to read a newsletter that you like and like get something out of it. So that was the whole point of it. So I started that in January. That quickly grew to a couple thousand subscribers. So then I was like, oh, cool. Like, maybe I'm onto something. People would message me as well. They would email me and they're like, hey, like, this is super cool. Have you ever thought about like making this bigger, expanding this in some way? And there was really no real answer. It was just like some way, ...
Right.
It's like, okay. The things that drive me crazy are like Reddit. It's like completely anonymous. There's like groups about cycling, but it's not local. It's super negative as well. So it's like, hey, should I get clipping like shoe, like get it, like,
And then the peanut gallery talks shit, basically, right?
And it's like,
right.
oh, you suck.
Yeah,
Like,
yeah.
So I was like, okay, this is not a place people want to go to. So long story short, I just did a ton of research, built out a business plan, found like what I think is a white space. Not only that, but like over the last year or so, like just the sheer amount of layoffs people are going through. Like, if you look at LinkedIn is really a professional network where, like, I know what you do professionally, but I don't necessarily know, like, that your hobby is cycling.
I've been putting a lot of cycling content up there. So you know I'm a cyclist if you follow my LinkedIn. But,
exactly.
yeah.
But, like, with all the layoffs happening, it was like, if you're super into this thing and it's cycling, why not, like, connect through your profession but also through your interests? So when I decided to build out Front Pack, it was like I wanted it to be two things. I wanted to connect around hobbies, but also connect professionally in a different way that LinkedIn couldn't provide.
Great.
Yeah.
So how do you go from, I think you had a career working for some pretty big notable companies, and you mentioned communications and marketing. Again, you got the family at home.
Yeah.
Like, what was the conversation like with your wife about taking this leap and going all in?
Yeah, luckily I've been married for quite some time, and we have two amazing children, and I have an amazing supportive wife, and we said this is going to be super tight, but the way I'm built and the way I operate, I knew if I didn't try, I would get to like 70 years old, 80 years old, eventually on my deathbed.
Be a bitter old man.
Yeah, I'd be like, I never tried this. So that was a large part of it. It was just like, it was all encompassing. It was like ingrained into me. And we've talked about it a little bit, but I truly believe whether you're at a race or you're meeting people, like there's that connection that didn't exist online. And That's, again, like something that we're trying to build out. Like I said, it's been a month, but like we want people to feel the emotional investment that they get in real life with Front Pack.
Outside of like the family support system, was there like mentors that you were kind of talking this through before making the decision? Was there any like super impactful advice you got from anyone outside of that?
Yeah, no, absolutely. So a bunch of mentors, reached out to a lot of people. The things that, and again, like going back to the microcosm of life in sport, is the things that they really pointed to me was because of what this business is, and there's social aspects, there's connection aspects. Like the first being is like consistency. If you're going to go in, like you have to go in and you have to be consistent every single day. You got to show up, whatever's going on in your like household or whatever that day, like you still got to show up. Like the people who are on your platform are relying on you. So it's definitely like the consistency thing. And then also one thing that I've discovered, which is totally true, is this whole idea of pivoting. And I'm sure like every entrepreneur goes through this, but go with what works, but be prepared to pivot on a moment's notice if things aren't working. So much for me thus far has been throwing spaghetti at the wall and like, how are people on the platform reacting? And like, is this working? Is this not working?
Can you share one or two of those pivots that you've had so far? Or?
Yeah, absolutely. So some things that have worked is each month we like launch like a theme. So in September we launched this idea of looking back to move forward, and like we based the entire month around that. So like, what can you look back on the last 8 months that we can move forward with? So one thing that we did was we launched introduction meetings. And I hate to say meetings, but they're like more like sessions, because we don't want it to be all that serious, right? It's like, hey, let's introduce ourselves. What goals did you have? What did you do? How did you do? What did you do well? And then in October, so we continued the theme idea. In October, we are doing like this idea of like keep on climbing. So
it's almost like an accountability group.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah.
And by the way, I appreciate that you said you're not taking yourself too seriously, because that, I think, is one of the criticisms about this community.
Yes.
You get a bunch of road cyclists together, and it's a lot of talk about roads
too, right?
Yeah, a lot of talk about road cycling. For those that are newer to the sport, it's intimidating.
Yeah.
So I love that's part of the brand.
Yeah, no, and that's so true. If you don't have accountability, it's like, what are you really doing it for? So the accountability comes from the people around you. You don't need someone to be yelling at you, but if it's like, hey, like I had a really hard day, can someone pump me up here? Yeah. So we've been sticking with this theme because everywhere else not in Austin, it's getting colder and people are like getting less motivated. They're like, hey, it's like sweatpants season. So like the whole idea for October of like keep on climbing is like resist this urge. You're almost there. Like we're almost to Thanksgiving. We're almost to the holidays. What's that one last goal that you kind of want to hit?
Yeah.
So,
yeah, that's really interesting. I think this is a good segue into one of the questions that we had was, you're building a social platform. Critical mass is really important, because for those accountability groups, there has to be someone on the other line, on the other end, keeping you accountable. What are some of your thoughts and initiatives around building the onboarding flywheel? One that I think is really could be sticky is you're having a guest like live stream every week or so.
Yeah.
Can you tell us about that?
Yeah, absolutely. So open to name changes, but it's called the Front Pack Show. It's a weekly live stream with experts, coaches, guests. We have one person on a week. I interview them. So the idea is, if you're a member, rather than like, I love podcasts, by the way, but the idea of a podcast is very much like a one-way communication form. So you record it and then you send it out to the world. The idea for the Front Pack Show is, if you're a member of Front Pack, come be a guest on the show. And like, just like we have live guests today, come ask questions. Like, if you don't have access to a physical therapist, but you're fighting an injury, like come on and ask.
Yeah. It's access.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
So, and then, so we do that show, we package it up, we put it on the platform for replays as well.
What one or two guests you've had on the show?
Yeah, absolutely. So a guest that we just filmed with today was And I'm always like looking for really interesting people. So this girl, Liz, she's the 2-time back-to-back the world beer mile champ. Just like super fascinating.
That's gnarly. That's badass.
Like,
oh my god. So why don't you explain to the listeners what that is?
Yeah, absolutely. So the beer mile, which I was just super curious about this. Like I was curious about what beer do you drink, what temperature.
What was your strategy? Yeah.
Yeah, exactly. Like,
right.
And it's so funny. There's so much strategy behind it, but it's like totally crazy because she was a runner at Johns Hopkins. She's consistently run ever since she graduated. She actually lived in Austin for 4 years. Yeah, and she just every year for the last 2 years she's won this beer mile champ. So the beer mile is you chug a beer and then you run a lap, so it's 400 meters. And so you do that 4 times. And the idea is, 1, you have to do it without yakking. And then 2, you have to do it as fast as possible.
Which is part of the strategy.
Yeah.
Yeah.
For sure. And it's interesting because I did my research and I was watching her previous races. And the first lap, she was like in 4th or 5th. And then she just continually like just hunts down her opponents. And
right.
It was awesome. And each week we're trying to have bigger and bigger guests. Obviously that's going to be a part of our strategy as well. So we can get to new audiences because we have these great guests, people on the platform as well. They've already made their inputs of like, hey, we want Jim Walmsley. They're like, get Lance Armstrong on. So,
yeah.
I was like, I will try my hardest to do all these things.
Yeah.
So,
yeah.
What does like success look like for you when you're thinking about Front Pack 5-10 years from now? Like, and can you talk to us a little bit about what the last month has been like in terms of user counts and things like that? Are you happy with it? Are you wishing for more?
Yeah, absolutely. So in terms of 5 to 10 years from now, this was actually a conversation I had with one of my mentors as well, and he said it perfectly. He said, you don't need to be Facebook. Facebook is too big and you're going to totally lose like the community aspect. You know, you're going to be sitting in front of Congress testifying about whatever. So for me, the dream for me is to have hundreds, if not a few thousand members who are all being positive, motivating each other, storytelling. I'm such a storyteller. I think that's why I love like my career in communications and marketing. There's nothing better than a good story, you know? Like when I read to my kids at night, that's the last thing we do is like read stories. And so the idea of having hundreds or thousands of people just really engaged with each other, and we live in a complex world, right? You don't need to go like doom scrolling. Why don't you go like scrolling for some positive things? So like when you jump on the app at night, feel good about yourself. Or if you did have a bad day, post about it and have people say like, hey man, like wake up tomorrow morning and feel better. And like, you know, it's funny enough, October 10th is Mental Health Awareness Day.
Tomorrow.
So it's like, yeah, absolutely. So I just think just having a positive place for everyone. And then for me personally, I want to get big enough where we can keep it community based. I would love to build out an Austin chapter. There's so much going on in this city, but it's so hard to find. You know, there's like a million run clubs and there's a million things happening, but like I don't know where to go to find all that. There's like not one central location. Like if we had an Austin chapter, it was like on the platform, we have a calendar and every day it's like it shows the different things that are happening. Like just be able to go on there and say, hey, I'm going to do this today, and then on Thursday I'm going to do hill climbers, and then on Saturday I'm going to do the breakfast club. So I would love to do city chapters. For me personally, I would love to give back, like having people donate money or time to like buy bikes for the underprivileged around the holidays. That's like stuff that's really important to me. So again, like I want people to feel like they're a part of something bigger than themselves.
Yeah, and like Austin is such a music city, right? There's tons of websites that like outline for you all the different shows, live events, all this kind of stuff. And so we're also a very sporty, athletic, outdoor city, and I very much resonate with the fact that it's difficult to find rides, runs, those kinds of things.
There, as we are talking about it, I don't think there is a single place where you can just find all the runs and rides, which abound. I mean, there are so many run clubs.
So many.
Yeah.
Like
That's a really good point.
I saw someone post not too long ago, but they made a spreadsheet of like all the different run clubs, and it was like, if you're into this, go here.
That's cool.
Yeah. But it was like, that was the only time I've ever seen, like, on one sheet, the sheer number of run clubs that there are.
Right.
So, yeah, that's, and then in terms of actual growth, like, what I've seen in the last month and what I've learned in the last month is, one, it is a positive place. So with over 300 posts and comments, not once have I seen anyone railing each other about their political affiliation or, you know, what their thoughts are about the Middle East. Like, it's been like, that's been super like gratifying. Yeah,
right.
Absolutely. So like, that's been really gratifying. In terms of the growth, right now we're at a few hundred people, across the world. So we've seen people from New Zealand, South Africa, obviously across the U.S., Canada, some professional athletes. Yeah. So right now,
can you talk maybe just about like what it takes to become a user of Front Pack Sports? Like, is there a fee? What's the story?
Yeah, absolutely. So right now, the idea is to keep it like a freemium model right now. So right now, we just want people to join to get like inundated with it and be a part of it. When you first sign up, fill out your profile. Depending on your location, it will point you to like 5 to 7 different people who are like you. One that may be into cycling, or if you've added your profession, it will put you into a group of like-minded professionals.
Very cool.
You know,
yeah.
So right now there's marketing, there's sales, there's consultants, there's therapists. So right now it's a pretty decent size, but the thing for me is, at the end of the day, I can only do so much. It has to be up to the user to say, hey, I'm going to jump into this thing. There might be 10 or 15 marketers in a group, but it's like, how are you connecting, right? Like,
yeah.
A lot of the posts that I'm creating, it's trying to get people to interact.
Are you seeing metrics around those interactions with those cohorts, and are folks reaching out to each other and trying to connect with each other?
Yeah, so on the back end side, I can see from a chat perspective, like I don't see what they're chatting about, but I can see that people are
interacting.
Chatting. Yeah. So that's been like very cool to see as well.
Yeah. And I'm sorry, are the connections regional? Are they national, international? Is geography part of the criteria for the cohort?
No. So the cohort for like your profession, it right now it's lumped in just by profession. I am going to have an update here in a couple of weeks where I can make it even more granular, which will be really exciting.
That's really cool.
Yeah. So, and again, it is ever evolving. We're constantly pushing out new features and different ideas. Part of my job is to figure out like, how does this play a role into the community? So I can't do like affiliates. I can do a bunch of different things, but I'm like, I want people to just get in and like hang out and talk. I don't want to like make it so it's like, I don't even know what the hell to do here.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And as far as that goes, what are your thoughts for monetizing? Is that something you want to do sooner rather than later? Like to your point you just made, are you just trying to get engagement for now?
Yeah. I mean, I would be lying to you if I said money is a factor. But I want to do it the right way. I want to get people in. I'm not just going to like bring in like all these people and then just say, hey, now you have to pay X amount of dollars. I will say that there's the freemium model, but there's also there is a founders membership where the promise is if you join and you decide to pay the $9.99, at no point in our history will we change that. We're not going to do what Strava's done or what a million other platforms have done. So
for $9.99 with some of the guests you have on the live stream, that's like a really good value. That's 4 expert
Yeah,
speakers
exactly,
a
right?
month for $10 that you have personal access to.
Yeah, exactly. And then to finish up with your monetization question, there's also opportunities for professional athletes if you wanted to create your own space. So I just use this example um, because he's obviously the most famous cyclist in the world. But say if Lance Armstrong wanted to create like a front pack space, he could create a space and charge whatever value he thinks he brings to the table. So it's like, oh, I really love Lance. Lance is promising in his space he's going to do bi-weekly calls with everybody, and he'll just talk about what he's up to.
Yeah.
Also rides, or whether he wants to make posts or put photos. Because the one thing that drives me a little bit crazy, and being an entrepreneur, I've already had conversations with professional athlete like agents, is, hey, your athlete loves to post on Instagram. They are just giving away content for free for likes. Maybe it's because they have sponsors that they need to appease, and maybe they get affiliate dollars out of that. But at the end of the day, they're giving away content for free. The other main platform right now is YouTube, but YouTube pays between 1 and 3 cents per view. So if a pro athlete spends 10, 15, 20 hours a week, puts out a video, and he gets 50,000 views, that's like $800. So it's like all that time and money. Why not create a closer connection with the people who are really into you and give them the time of day? Have that personal relationship. So yeah, so that's another way that I'm looking at it as well. So
Yeah, and I think what we're talking about is fan club or direct to consumer app functionality.
Yeah.
And a lot of platforms do that, Patreon, but
Yeah.
you don't hear about any that are specific for athletes, or even more specifically for endurance athletes. So
Yeah.
branding yourself that way sounds like a great outlet.
yeah, exactly. And you brought up Patreon, which is a great example. And it's like, again, going back to the athlete, it's, hey, create a space here because these are your people, build awareness. Like, maybe someone doesn't know about you, but they will know about you because they're already in the network.
And they're more likely to shell out, $15, $20 a month or whatever
Yeah.
whatever you want to charge.
Yeah, yeah. And that's up to the athlete. Like, they can charge whatever they want. Like,
Right.
I don't care.
Right.
So, yeah. So, I mean, a lot of exciting things. It's like the hamster wheel is always spinning. Unfortunately, because, again, like being an entrepreneur and like a solo entrepreneur, it's
How are you pulling resources together? How
yeah.
what does your team look like, and as a solopreneur?
Yeah, I mean, the great thing about my network as well is there's a lot of great automation tools actually in the platform. So some of that stuff, like when I want people to have, a completely customized experience when they jump on, but it's like I can't literally send a chat to the hundreds of people who are joining. So
Right.
that's been helpful. But again, like it's really all myself and talking to people. I think the thing with hill climbers and myself is we're not traditionalists. We're not ingrained from like a publication or, we're not affiliated with anyone. So I think the great thing about that is everyone that I do reach out to, they're super supportive in terms of like giving their time and being helpful. So anytime I have reached out to people, they're like, yeah, like just find some time and like, let's get on a call.
Awesome.
Yeah.
Yeah. And that builds momentum and confidence for
Yeah.
you.
Yeah, for sure.
And I just, when I've reached out to people more times than not, and I mentioned this in our little show notes, like we're total outsiders. Like this is brand new for both of us. We have not been in this industry in any capacity besides running and riding bikes and swimming.
Yeah.
And is there anything as far as resources or an ask, anything that you're looking for that listeners could help with? what's it? Scott at frontpacksports.com is your
Yeah.
email, right?
If you work with brands or you know brands, obviously we're a little bit different in terms of the way that we're looking at advertisements. We're really interested in working with brands that align with our core values and like promoting those. So yeah, if this entire conversation sounds like something that you want to be a part of, absolutely reach out to me.
And I think you do have affiliate marketing set up, right?
Yeah, so I do have that
even if
capability.
even if it's a success fee, that's something that you're supporting.
Yeah,
right?
yeah.
That's cool, man. Something you mentioned a couple times was just how kind of the microcosm of endurance athletics is sort of like life. I definitely resonate with that in terms of like you set the training plan and just like you set the business model, and then you do what you're saying you're going to do, but then when you get sick, when you get injured, you pivot and you keep trying to grow. And so I'm definitely optimistic that you'll continue on the right path here as you keep growing the.
Yeah, that's the idea, right? and I mean, I think you hit the nail on the head. It's no plan ever is like A to Z. You know, there's just
What's that quote? It's like everyone's got a plan until you get punched in the face.
Mike Tyson.
yeah,
there you go.
exactly. I mean, I get punched in the face daily, but it's like, and that's the thing is like having a good plan, right? Like you need to. There's like I said it before, but there's so much noise. You could easily like go off on the wrong track because you saw what's working for a different brand, but you know, you created this thing to be your authentic self, just like hill climbers, you know, you want to focus on people who have built businesses around cycling. And it's like, you don't want to go talk to someone different and like, then all of a sudden your whole platform is not what it was.
Yeah.
So yeah, I mean, having a super strong plan, again, having mentors, having your North Star. Yeah, it's all those things.
Resilience, persistence, and never giving up.
Yeah,
Definitely.
exactly.
And maybe we'll get the audience involved here in a bit, but can you talk to us a little bit about the features? Like if you're a solopreneur, you're not necessarily a developer background, what does that development look like? What's the turnaround? How's that team supporting you?
Yeah, absolutely. So right now, yeah, I guess when I say solopreneur, I actually have two people that I'm working with. So a developer and a strategic guy. So from start to finish, the app, especially the tail end, because like you have to get Android and Apple approval, and depending on like, and I knew this from my old professional background, but like, if Apple's super busy, it could take weeks to like get your final app approved, and when you do submit it to Apple, it takes quite a bit of time because there usually is some feedback about it. So all in all, it probably took 4 months to go from design to branding to launching it. So.
That seems like a pretty quick turnaround. That's impressive.
Yeah, and again, I think for me, it's when I talk to people, they're like, "Dude, you've done all of this in like 5 months. Like, don't be so hard on yourself."
I'm impressed.
Yeah, so I think that's for me. Like the key takeaways that I've gotten over like this last month is one thing one of our guests said on a live stream previously was win the day. Like don't think too far into the future. Win that day, win the next day, and then over the course of a month, you won that month. So that's something I'm really bad at. It's like I'm thinking down the line. I'm thinking, how am I going to... I do have to pay bills, and like my wife's super supportive. Probably how long is this going to last?
It's stressful.
Yeah, no, for sure. And then the last thing I've learned in the last month is it's lonely. I went from a world of working in corporate America where I worked at some of the biggest agencies where I had so many resources and I had people to below me. If I didn't know something, people below me like could find like answers for me, and like
You're delegating to yourself.
yeah,
Right.
absolutely. So yeah, but like I said, I didn't want to get to 70 or 80 and say I never tried this.
I think it's a great reason.
Yeah.
Scott, thank you.
Yeah, no, thank you.
This was perfect, and thank you, audience, for being here and volleying some really, really on-point questions at us. Franco, thanks for joining as well.
Yeah. Been awesome, man. Thanks, Scott.
Yeah, no, thank you both. I hope my passion came through. And again, one last plug. If you are interested, go to frontpacksports.com. You can sign up right there. It will launch you into the portal, and your life will never be the same.
If you want to do like a plug, look directly at the camera and say the same thing. Seriously.
Okay. I encourage everyone, if you want to change your life in terms of endurance sports, go to frontpacksports.com, sign up, and your life will never be different or the same.
Perfect.
Yeah.
All right.
And then take a swig of this delicious sap.
Yes.
Yes,
Yeah.
absolutely.
Cheers.
Cheers.
All right. Thanks, everyone.
Thanks, everybody.
Yeah.